I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant.
This is episode 270 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And today I am sharing a self-guided retreat to usher in the new year. So happy holidays, my friends, one last time. It's been a month, hasn't it? Or maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks, depending on when you start your preparations for the holidays. And here we are sitting at this kind of sacred interstitial, this week in between the holidays. In my case, we celebrated Christmas, whether you celebrated Hanukkah or Christmas. And then as we're getting ready to turn the page to the new year, there's this space in between where we tend to hunker down and cozy up with our people. In my case, there's usually a lot of fires in the fireplace and books to be read and downtime if we do it right. If we do it the way I like to do it, that is. And I started a while back trying to do a thinking day between Christmas and New Year's. I think it's naturally a very reflective time of year. You know, the days are short, it gets dark early, it's cold, and we know that we're on the precipice of something new. And that holds so much possibility that it can give us the nudge that we need to press pause on all of the things happening around us and give ourselves a little bit of an opportunity to reflect. And I started calling it a thinking day once I heard that Bill Gates did that, because that was good enough for me. But that concept of really giving ourselves some time to get out of the typical rhythms of our life and to reflect on how things are going and to just give some thought to some bigger ideas. It's a gift that we probably don't give ourselves often enough. I know it's a challenge to fit in for me, and it's probably a challenge to fit in for you. So I have found it to be so valuable and so illustrative about anything that I want to shift and do heading into the new year that I want to give you a little bit of a how-to guide. Now, there's one big disclaimer on this, which is I instinctively want to be reflective at this time of year, but I am not starting with a blank slate, right? The way that I run my life and the way that I run the system that we kind of teach within the Brilliant Balance architecture is that there is already a plan in place. There's something very intentional already happening. And so this is not, for me, usually a start from scratch exercise. It's more of a refinement to account for any developments that have happened over the prior year and to acknowledge any directional shifts that I want to make in the year ahead. So I think that's important context. You may be starting more from what feels like a blank sheet of paper. Like, I don't know, nothing's working, right? And I really want to make a ton of changes. And before you can do that with any kind of success, it's really important to sort of take a look backwards and do a little bit of assessment about how you got here and why that happened, how that unfolded before you can decide what you can do about it. So if you're interested in trying out this idea of a self-guided retreat for even a part of a day, just a couple of hours would work. And, maybe a half day, maybe a day, whatever you can carve out in the midst of your schedule. And if you can't do it in this week between the holiday and the new year, it certainly would work in January. I mean, it would work in July, right? Whenever you're kind of crossing paths with this content, if it is resonating with you to do a self-guided retreat, you can give yourself permission to do it when this idea crosses your path. Okay. I want to get into a little bit about how, and then I am actually going to share with you a printable guide that you can use to keep yourself on track throughout the retreat. Some ideas about ambiance and location and some tools you might want to have with you. And then most importantly, prompts, right? Prompts for thoughts that you want to journal your way through in any style of journaling that makes sense to you. So that is downloadable for you. In fact, I'll go ahead and give you the URL for that now. And of course, we're going to link that for you in the show notes. It's going to be at brilliant brilliant-balance.com/, and then this part's all one word, self-guided retreat. Okay, so super easy, brilliant-balance.com/self-guided retreat. Go get your download, get that thing saved and printed so that you have the guide that goes along with this episode. So here are the basic tenets of how to do a self-guided retreat. First thing, and very, very important, is to clear that space in your calendar. So ideally, if you can find a day where you can sort of get away from it all, that would be fantastic. Okay. If you can't get a whole day, half day is great. Couple of hours works. And those, you could even do a couple of hours more than one time, right? You could do several early morning sessions or several early evening sessions, whatever you can sort of carve out of the rhythm of this week in your household would work. But I like to have some uninterrupted time to think. And candidly, I do like a bit of an echo. I like to say, okay, that was my first pass through these questions. I got them on paper. Now I'm going to go let that simmer. I'm going to let it percolate. I'm going to let it sink in. And typically then when I come back to it, there's some new level of clarity because somehow those dots have kind of magically connected themselves while I wasn't thinking about them. It's like the power of diffusive thinking. So clearing a space in your calendar is the first thing that you want to do. Second thing I do is choose a really great spot where I want to be, where the energy is really good for me to do this work. So for some people, that could be in your home. If I can be alone in my home or in a part of my home, this works beautifully for me. I love my house, feel really lucky to live here. There's a lot of corners that honestly, I don't even spend a lot of time in, that when I go to that particular spot, it feels a little bit unconventional. I can get a little shift in the energy. So you absolutely can do this at home. I have also done this thinking day in a place where I've purposefully shifted my environment as a way to shift my thinking. So I've gone to hotel lobbies, like a great hotel, great public space in the lobby, found a parking spot and just set up shop for some time, at a table. I've done this in libraries. I've done it in bookstores. I've done it in coffee shops. So I want you to just give yourself permission to find whatever spot would work for you. But the key thing is, where does the energy feel good, right? Where do you feel inspired? And do you feel like you can really connect with some insights that maybe have been a little brushed aside throughout the year? Third thing that I do is I do give myself a guided process. So again, that's what I'm doing with this download for you, is I'm trying to give you a little bit of a guided process, because otherwise I find that it is very easy for me to not know how to begin, and I can get stuck for a while sort of staring at the blank page, or worse, going down other rabbit holes on the internet, right? Opening up a window of something, and then before I know it, I'm 6 New York Times articles in instead of doing what I came to do. So the guided process helps me know how to begin, and it also helps me know when to end or how to end, right? When I reach the end of the prompts, I'm like, okay, this is the natural end of this process. Again, otherwise, I can be a bit of an overachiever and just sort of keep going and feel like I haven't gotten the big insight yet. And so it's hard to put it down. So a guided process gives me those guardrails around the beginning and an ending, and gives me sort of the through line to follow throughout the day.
Okay, my friends, I have some big news for you today. After years of dreaming about it and saying, how great would it be to have our very own Brilliant Balance boutique, we did it. And the online doors are open. So if you love the podcast and you'd love to start your day with a Brilliant Balance mug, or add a little inspo to your office art, or cozy up in a super soft hoodie and a hat for those late to the bus stop mornings, head over to brilliant-balance.com/shop and choose something that will remind you that you are brilliant, because you are. And then I want to see all the pictures of you with your new goodies. So tag me on social media at brilliant_balance when it arrives. That's brilliant-balance.com/shop. Go have some fun.
The next thing I've had to challenge myself to do is to aim to be thorough, but not perfect, right? Reflective is sort of the mode that I want to be in. So contemplative, reflective, thoughtful, but there's not a perfect way to do this. And I typically have to remind myself that I'm not turning this in anywhere. No one is judging or reviewing or grading my efforts. So it's really whatever it takes for me to excavate those insights. And so that means that I can write in incomplete sentences. I don't have to have perfect handwriting if I'm doing it by hand. And pro tip, I always do this in pencil. Always. I write things longhand, typically. I think best in longhand versus on a typewriter or at a keyboard. And if I do it in pencil, it's like this immediate cue to my brain that I could always erase it if I needed to, right? Not that like you couldn't cross it out with a pen, but there's something about doing it in pencil that just gives me permission to let things flow a little more fluidly. So aiming for thorough, but not perfect, trying to stay reflective. And then the next reminder I give myself is be kind to myself. Be kind to yourself, Sherilyn. Because if you are like me and you lean toward critical, if sort of your natural nature is to be self-critical, then this is an opportunity for you to reflect on the last year only through a critical lens. And what's really important is that there is a balanced perspective on the year. So the prompts that I am giving you will sort of naturally drive you in both directions. They will ask you to think about things that energized you or that you are particularly proud of, or compliments that you received, right? The prompts will guide you to look for the positive, and they will give you an opportunity to acknowledge things that got in your way, things that stand out as being particularly difficult or draining, things that you did not finish that you intended to. So you will, through the prompts, get to both. The reminder I have to give myself is be kind, be at least balanced in my perspective as I reflect backwards. And then I always have to remind myself that I have permission not to know exactly what's next. The purpose of this exercise is not to develop a complete plan. It is to pull insights and patterns and themes and reflections out of the year. And so I have to give myself permission to stop there and not necessarily tie this up in a bow with a well-crafted, 5-point plan. I think it's helpful to have a few themes, a few takeaways or lessons, or even, goals or dreams that are bubbling to the surface as you think forward. But having a specific plan to know exactly what's next, that's not the point of this exercise. And candidly, I don't think it's possible inside of the time that you're probably going to be able to allocate, right? I need a break after thinking. I need that percolating time for the thoughts to bubble before I would be ready to transform that into a plan. So this is retreat, reflection, right? Celebration, excavation, not planning. And because of that, I also try to, it's hard to make time for myself to get away from, I can tell myself, oh, but the kids are home and I should spend time with them, or family I can be visiting with, or, oh, I could really take those decorations down, whatever the things are that are pulling at you. I like to lean into a few special touches in the day that make it a little bit of a celebration, right? A little bit of an elevated experience that makes it special and makes it something that I'm looking forward to. And I'm sort of rewarding myself for making the time to do this. And that can be whatever it is for you. I mentioned that in some instances, I've gone to like a lovely hotel lobby. Just being in that hotel lobby for me is one of the special touches. But if I ordered a great glass of wine or champagne, that's just going to take it up a notch, right? It could be that there's an experience connected to the space that you are doing this in. It could be a special scent or candle that you have near you. It could be a great blanket. It could be that you're actually making a fire in the fireplace and listen to that crackling noise. So whatever the special touches are that might make this day really feel like it's yours and like you're getting to do it your way, I just want to give you permission to lean into those special touches because that's what makes this a magnetic experience. And then the last thing I've had to think about, and I just learned this the hard way, is to be mindful of re-entry. I can come out of an experience like this very excited about some of my insights, right? And I am bubbling with energy to share those with people who were not there, right? So typically that would be my husband, could be my mom, it could be one of the kids, but I have this like, oh, like I can't wait to share this. And I've just learned that people who didn't have the experience with me may not give me exactly the reaction that I'm looking for. Perhaps that resonates with you. It's akin to when we have an experience at like a great conference or retreat that we go to in person and away, and we come back and we're like, oh, you're not going to believe how awesome this was. And they can't contextualize it because they weren't there. So being really mindful about reentry and sort of gently coming back into the rhythm of the household, carrying these insights like the treasures that they are, it's actually become helpful to keep them a little bit more to myself and to recognize that the insights are for me. They're not for the other people. I'm not there to give them direction, at least not in that moment, and I'm not necessarily there to make their reflection or recollection of the events of the year match my own because they had their own experience with them. So being mindful of reentry helps me just sort of keep the sacredness of this experience as it was intended when I designed it, which is that it is for me, right? That's why I'm calling this a self-guided retreat. It really is just for you. So if you think you might want to do this, again, to make this simple, to help you kind of get out of the gates, I put together this printable guide. It has prompts are the main thing in it. There's some other content there to help you structure the retreat as well. It's kind of like retreat in a box here. But the prompts, I think, are really where the gold is. So there are this series of questions, first, that are reflective prompts to help you think about the year that has just passed. And then there are some prompts about looking forward. Because again, you don't have to have all the answers, but I think if you're like me, you will naturally want to lean forward a little bit and start thinking about what do I really want to capitalize on in the next year. And then there's a little bit of a what I'm calling end of day outputs, like a way to sort of tie this up in a bow by capturing those big themes and lessons and takeaways. And then a few of the dreams or goals that you have for the upcoming year and a little bit of thought around what it might take to make those your reality. And what I will tell you is this is really normal. As you sit with these questions, you may feel, I hope you'll feel really energized, right? I hope you'll feel like, okay, I know what I can make of this puzzle and I can see how I can advance the game. But you also might feel a bit overwhelmed. And I would just remind you that that is really totally normal. Thinking it's one thing to look backwards. It is quite another to look forward at that blank slate of the new year. And so if you think you would benefit from having some help in pulling those ideas into a plan to really go get the life that you want, right, in the year ahead with some accountability and some support for implementing that plan, then you really want to think about getting that support. You absolutely can get that from us. That is a huge part of what we do within Brilliant Balance. And it's easy to schedule an exploratory call with me via the website homepage so that you could just see if that is something that would be of service to you. If you're not going to do it with us, you really want to look at how can you get some accountability and support and like a second set of eyes on this plan? Because how often do we end up having the reflections and getting a little bit of clarity about what we might want to do, but then not really, we sort of crumble when it comes to the execution. And that's often because we're missing some piece of the puzzle. Either we don't have the right actions in there, right? We kind of know what we want, but we really don't know how to get there. Or we know how to get there, but we don't have the accountability or the support structure around us to stay on task when life gets really crazy. So that's something that is available to you. If you want to chat about how we would do that, I'm always happy to do that. I'm going to ask you to do something. If this episode was like a big for you, if you listened to this and thought, I'm going to do this, and I'm pretty excited to download that plan, I'm going to ask you to take a second to share this particular episode with someone else in your life who would benefit from this experience. Someone that you know who, is on that journey to say, like, I think things can be better than they are right now, but I need a little time to think and figure out what did happen this year. How did I get to this place, and where do I want to go from here? Share this episode with them. Make sure that download gets into their hands so that they can do the self-guided retreat as well. And I would love it if you would share this with somebody in your life who you think could benefit. All right. Happy holidays once again to you and yours. That is all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.